Boiling, steaming, sautéing, stewing, blanching, roasting, even reheating. We're going to cover everything that I wish I knew back when I first started cooking simple green vegetable side dishes. Broccoli is a bunch of immature flower buds growing up out of a fleshy stem. Sometimes they sell it with the stem, sometimes without. The stem is actually my favorite part, but most people go for the florets. You can just cut them off. Now you have a broccoli crown. Trim more stem from the inside of the crown until all the florets fall apart. If they're roughly the same size, they'll cook evenly, which is why this one I'm going to chop into thirds like so, and this one I'll just chop in half maybe. The other way I like to harvest off florets is to turn the thing upside down and rotate around it as I trim them off one by one. The stem, sometimes people clean up a little bit like this, or they'll even peel it like a carrot. I don't think that's necessary. You can cut this in many shapes, but I'm just going to do thin rounds. They'll take longer than the florets to cook, so you want them to be thin. And whenever it starts to feel really tough and woody, you probably don't want to eat that part anyway, so just toss that. My boomer parents boiled their green vegetables, as was common in the US at the time. I'll show you what that does. Let's time it. Enough boiling water to fully submerge the food. Cover to retain heat so that it comes back up to a boil fast. Generally speaking, green vegetables respond best to fast cooking. Slow cooking is what turns them brown and mushy. It's been 6 minutes. I will test these the way that I pretty much test all vegetables, which is just by piercing the thickest, hardest part with a fork. When it feels tender as I want it, it's done. I usually just drain through a gap in the pot lid. Yes, lots of nutrients leach into the water with boiling and end up down the drain, and that's a shame. Sure, you can use a strainer instead if you want, but I usually just return the veg back to the empty pan either way because it's still warm and I want to melt some butter in there. Olive oil is nice too, a pinch of salt, stir, and there's boiled broccoli. Honestly, not my favorite thing. The little flower buds especially just come out really mushy. The color is drab. Thanks largely to the good people of East Asia, we now know about steaming vegetables here in the US, and I will argue that steaming is superior. Get a wide pan and just put in like an inch, maybe a couple centimeters of water. This takes less water and therefore less energy. Cover to retain heat. Bring to a boil, and I like these adjustable steamer baskets that'll fit any pot. When I eat the broccoli stem, I often put those slices in first just to give them a head start because they're so firm. A minute later, I'll stack on the florets, and if you don't have a lid, you can just tempt this with foil, but I have a lid, so... Here we are after just 3 minutes. Let's check. Still too firm, but steaming generally cooks faster because the temperature is hotter. Steam is more efficient at transferring heat. And while it also does leach nutrients out of the food, it simply doesn't do that as bad as boiling does. And that question has been directly examined by science. Steaming is healthier. If you're scared to lift that out by its handle, you can hook it with a fork. Maybe dump out the water and then drop in some butter, the veg, a pinch of salt. There's this awesome study out of the UK from a few years ago where they did some taste tests, and even Brits who claimed that they preferred boiled vegetables actually preferred the steamed ones in blind tasting. So, hey, you know what's also well supported by research and evidence? Geology, sponsor of this video. My wife Lauren is always on me to get a skincare routine going, and Geology is dermatology-grade stuff with scientifically proven ingredients all wrapped up in a routine that's tailored for your needs. You just take their little quiz. My face is generally fine, but I get painful back acne. That's why they sent me this body wash. It smells like a much more sophisticated man.
Ooh! Are you recording?
I have no patience for complicated routines. The bottles tell me exactly what to do in what order. First, I wash my face with that and then rinse, dab on some of this on the particularly thin and sensitive skin under the eyes, and in the morning, you finish with this moisturizer with sunscreen in it, which is something I really should be more serious about, both for wrinkles and my health. Geology is vegan, cruelty-free. What else do you want? Use my code AdamRagusea70 for 70% off your personalized skincare trial set. There's also a 50% off on add-ons waiting for you, so save big with my link and code in the description. Thank you, Geology. Anyway, steaming beats boiling, says science, and you don't have to have a steamer basket. Just try heating up a thin film of water in a bare pan. Drop your broccoli right in there. This works best with tall pieces of veg where most of their surface is going to be up out of the water and in the steam. If you're worried you're going to run out of water and things are going to start burning, well, just splash in a little more as you go. Are we done? Oh, Oh, no. But there we are. Again, after about 5 minutes, I'll drain what little water I've got, but you don't have to drain vegetables really thoroughly. A little water in there will emulsify with this butter and make a nice silky little sauce. I also like to put in some garlic at this stage, and yes, this is a perfect use case for those little frozen balls of pre-minced garlic. I love those, but chop it fresh if you want. Salt, pepper, stir, done. Or you could go the other way and get a whole Asian-style bamboo steamer basket. You just set that in shallow boiling water, and then you have multiple levels in which to steam food, so you can do lots more stuff. Okay, what about dry heat? Sautéing and such usually works better with tender, quick-cooking vegetables like this zucchini, or with veg that you want to eat a little crunchy, like maybe a pepper. A little minced shallot is really nice in sautéed vegetables, and zucchini needs extra flavor help, way more than broccoli does. A little oil in a wide pan. Butter at this stage might burn before everything is finished. Only the zucchini in at this stage. My heat is quite high. I like to give everything a preliminary stir and then actually just let it sit on one side for like a couple of minutes just to get some nice browning on one side at least. Steaming cannot brown your food because steaming isn't hot enough at normal atmospheric pressures and because water gets in between the chemicals that need to react to brown. In hot oil, however, stuff browns, and that creates very strong flavors. When everything's about done, the shallots go in because they just need a minute. Salt and pepper and stir, and you could call that finished, or you could use a little water or stock to deglaze the pan a bit, dissolve that brown flavor at the bottom. And when the pan is looking almost dry again, I'll kill the heat, wait for the bubbling to almost stop, and then melt in my butter. Whenever butter gets too hot, the oil and the fat phases break, and it gets thin and greasy. If you keep it below boiling, it'll emulsify with the water in there to make a nice sauce. That'd be so great next to a piece of protein. Anyway, you can, of course, combine methods. I'll start these green beans in the steamer, and when they're like 2/3 of the way cooked, I'll take them out and rapidly cool them back down again with water. This is called blanching and shocking, partially boiling or steaming your veg followed by a cold plunge to stop the cooking. If we let them sitting around hot, they would keep cooking and they would turn gray and limp. In this rapidly cooled state, you can hold them for hours or until the next day. No drop in quality. You can imagine how useful blanching is for restaurants. Now you just need to get a hot pan going, and this could maybe have some other stuff in it, right? Maybe some protein or something. Drop the blanched veg in there with it, and they'll finish cooking really fast, and you'll get that sweet, firm, steamed interior combined with a toasty brown exterior. And the green color will last longer because the blanching step actually deactivated some enzymes that break down chlorophyll. Now, I don't always have the time for blanching and sautéing vegetables at home, but the results are undeniable. That's delicious, and there's a reason why most of the plain green vegetables that you get in a good restaurant are cooked something like that. Let's talk about leafy greens, like this kale. First rule is buy way more than you think you want, because most of this volume here is just air in between the leaves. It's going to cook down a lot. You may consider trimming out the thickest part of the stem from each leaf. It takes a really long time to cook. With collards, I definitely cut out the stem, but kale is more tender. I just get out the biggest ones, and then you just randomly hack at it with your knife. Again, the pieces are going to shrink a lot. Here in the southern U.S., you generally stew greens in a base of cured pork fat, some bacon or ham or something. Melt some fat out of that bacon and in go the greens. If they seem like they're not going to fit, then just stir them for a minute. They'll start to wilt down, some room will open up, in goes the rest. A lot of water is going to come out of the greens themselves, but you may need to add a little bit more to achieve stewing, which is when you cook something for a long time in a small amount of flavorful liquid. I'll just cover, and 20 minutes later, most old-school cooks around here would consider those underdone, but I like the pieces to still have a little snap to them. That splash of vinegar is very traditional and delicious. Easy on the salt because the bacon is salty, right? Could you steam greens instead of stewing them? Yeah, but there's a reason people don't usually do that. Like plain steamed broccoli has a lovely flavor and texture. Greens, not so much. Oh, the liquid at the bottom of the greens pot is known as pot liquor. It's one of the most delicious substances in the universe, and it contains all of those nutrients that we leached out. Absolutely drink it. Other vegetables taste particularly good when roasted. Asparagus is the king because of how meaty it tastes when it gets browned. The bottom third or so is generally too woody for people, so you just trim those off. Keep for veggie stock if you do that. Some people who are not me quite enjoy the taste of roasted broccoli. I prefer cauliflower, but we're doing green veg today. Everything on a tray, oil, seasoning. If you have it, citrus zest is like transformatively good on roast asparagus, as is garlic. I'm tossing these around, but keeping them separate in case one cooks way faster than the other. I could take out the asparagus early, maybe. Again, veg cooks better when it's cooked fast, so you want a super hot oven, or I'm using the broiler up top there to really blast these with dry heat. A few minutes later, I might stir things around a little, let as many surfaces as possible get browned quickly while the inside remains relatively cool. Same reason you cook a mid-rare steak with super high heat. These took less than 10 minutes. Those are a little floppier than I normally like. My bad, could have used a minute fewer. The broccoli is good if you like the taste of crunchy farts. Roasting just really seems to emphasize the sulfurous flavor notes in broccoli, not my thing. But before we go, let's talk about frozen peas, which are the king of frozen vegetables because they are small, so they freeze and thaw really quickly, and that preserves their quality. Plus, peas are only sweet for a very brief little window, so fresh peas often aren't as good by the time you actually get them. Frozen peas are always sweet. I usually just boil them in the microwave, which takes like 5 minutes. When the peas float, they're done. Yes, they have steam-in-bag microwave vegetables now, but for health reasons, I try to minimize cooking food in plastic. Drain back into the hot jug where we can melt in some butter and stir in some salt, and let me tell you, you are never too old or too young for frozen peas. Hey, at least it's a vegetable. Well, I guess they're little seeds, technically, little beans, but hey, whatever, just eat them.